Okay, so today we are going to do a training on how to create an accessible Word document. I'm going to share my screen with y'all, and basically we're going to cover kind of the most common things, things that you'll probably not be aware of that will make your document accessible or not accessible. I'm going to cover some different topics. I'll show you some examples of what's accessible, what's not accessible, and I'll show you how to make those corrections using the navigation pane and then also the accessibility checker that is within Microsoft Word. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And can everybody see my Word document on the screen? How to create an accessible document? Okay, great. So the first thing I want to point out is that many of our sites have forms that are Word documents, and I just want to provide the tip to the group that you cannot make a Microsoft Word only document an accessible form. So something to keep in mind, you will definitely need to utilize different software if you're wanting to make a Microsoft Word form accessible. So just something to keep in mind. The next thing I want to cover is in order to make your document accessible, you also want to save it. Fix my typo here. Save as a Word document with a descriptive file name. So up here on the top of my document, you can see that I have document.docx for the extension. That's not very descriptive. We run across that often where there's documents posted on a website or somewhere else, and the title of the document is not descriptive at all of what the content of the document is. So always start with saving your document to have a more descriptive name. So I'm going to call this basically what it is, how to create an accessible document. You can add the, I'm going to add the year just for the sake of putting a timestamp on it, and I'll click save. And then now you can see at the top of my Word document that I have a more descriptive title for my Word document. If you don't see the extension, the Word document extension at the end, there's a way you can turn that on. You can do that under, if you click on Word at the top of your panel on your site, and then under Preferences, under General, then you can click Show File Extensions. You can turn that on or off, but I like to keep it on just to make sure that I've saved it properly. So next, let's talk about using styles to create headings. So currently, I have created this Word document with this content in it. It has no structure to it, no heading structure whatsoever. We're going to go through and make this document accessible as we're kind of working through this. So it looks like I have headers applied because I've manually changed the way the text looks just using the size and bolded. And so if you were to look at the outline of this in the navigation pane, you will see, which I'll show you here in a minute, that there's no structure to this document, which would make it really difficult for somebody who's using assistive technology to view an outline of this document. So assistive technology cannot infer meaning from visual characteristics alone, such as bolded or underlined text. You have to create the structure using the built-in styles with the headers. So I'm going to show you how to do that. First, I'll show you how to check your work as you're kind of going. Now I'm on a Mac. So on a PC, some of the things in the ribbon, some of the instructions might be different for you. So just keep that in mind. It might not necessarily be in the same spot where I'm showing you because I am on a Mac computer. So for me, it's under the View tab, and then there's a little checkbox or a little option for navigation pane that I can turn on. And here, this is going to put this all here in the left-hand side. When I go to the little ellipsy, like bulleted looking list, you can see there's nothing here because I don't have any kind of a structure to my document using any of the built-in header tools. So in order to apply those styles, I'm going to show you what to do and how that's going to change what shows up in the navigation pane. I'm going to go back to my home. And since this is the title of my document, I want to make it my header 1. If I select the header 1 up top here, it changes the style of it. And I don't really like the way that looks. So what if I wanted to just update the header 1 to look like the style I had already created? So I'm just going to do Command Z to undo what I just did. And then one of the things that you can do is right click on the header 1 option, and you'll get a couple of options to either modify it or you can update that header 1 to match the selection, which that's what I'm going to do. I want to change my header 1 style to the style that I've already created. And then that makes this header a header 1. And now you can see that it's showing up in the left-hand side over here on the navigation pane, starting to build a structure, an accessible structure for my document. So just to continue that on, I'm going to go through and do the same thing for my other headers. I want this to be a header 2. So I'm going to right click on header 2 and update header 2 to match the selection. And so now, because that style has already been applied, I can just go through each one of those headers that I know are going to be my second level headings, and I can update those as I go through my document. And as you can see on the left-hand side, that's updating my navigation pane too. And this is important because this outline that we're creating here, then we can easily generate a table of contents to add to the beginning of our document when we're finished making this document accessible, which makes it really a lot easier for people who are using assistive technology to scan and determine, where do they want to jump to within your content. So it also makes it easier for other users just to navigate as well. So, and one way that you can check that as you're going through is when you click your cursor into the text, you can see whether or not that heading is being highlighted. So here, I'm clicking on this section here, and what's being highlighted here is just normal text. So there's no style applied, and you can also see it's not showing up in the navigation here. So really important to use those heading styles within your content. Oops, I'm zooming in here. And I'll continue to update those as we go through this document. That my header 2. I'm going to make this my header 3 because it's obviously a subheader of my header 2 here. So I'm going to update this style to match my selection. And so now I have, oh, I didn't quite have the whole thing highlighted. Right click, update, there. Whoops, I don't know what I just did there. I need to update to match selection. Okay, so now you can see that showing up here. Here's my heading structure, header 1, these are 2s, this is 3. You can see that outline is being built here. So, and another reason why that's important, assistive technology cannot infer meaning from visual characteristics alone. So it's important to create that structure so that when somebody is accessing your document using some other software, they're able to get a visual, or not a visual, but an outline structure of your document in order to determine what they want to read, what they want to skip over. So now, and I'll continue to update those headers as we're working through this document, but I'm going to go to the next option, which is, or the next topic, which is using the built-in features to create a list. This is something else that I see often in Word documents where people will use just the space bar or the tab feature in order to create space. Sorry, I keep accidentally zooming in here. And so what I have here is I have a couple of I just have some inaccessible example of what a tabbed list looks like. So somebody would have tabbed and then added a dash to this. You might not be able to tell just by looking at it. And so a good way that you can check to determine whether or not this is a bulleted list that was created using the built-in tools within Word is by you can click on the little paragraph icon in the top of the navigation bar here, or ribbon. And so when you do that, you'll see that your spaces and your paragraphs and tabs will all show up. So you can see here, this is not a bulleted list. This was tab, dash here. And so that, if you were to use a screen reader, is going to be, it's not going to tell the user that this is a bulleted list. So you can always check by turning on the formatting pane here. It's easy to click it on and off in order to be able to determine whether or not that's accessible. So an accessible example here is you've got the built-in bulleted list tools here, and that's what we have here. Is another way to check it is if you highlight that bulleted list text, and you can see in the ribbon at the top under the Home tab that the bulleted list icon for bullets is checked here. So that is using the built-in features to create lists. Another thing that we commonly see that's not accessible is using tabs or spaces in order to create like a 2-column layout. So let me update this header style as I'm going through here, because at the end I'm going to show you how to create a table of contents based on your heading structure. So I think I got that one. I got that one. Okay. So right here we have, this is an inaccessible example, and I want to show you, you can't tell just by looking at it because of the way that it's set up that it's not set within the 2 columns. But I'm going to show you how a screen reader is going to read this under, I know it's review, and I'm going to play the read aloud so you can see how somebody with a screen reader is going to read this text here.
This is an example of using a tab to a screen reader will not read this content separate content instead of using in the proper order, even though it appears columns to lay out your content like it will be based on how it looks.
So that just reads it straight across. It doesn't read it as if it was in columns. And so this content here, I've placed within a column, and how you can do that, and I'm just going to show you, is if you were to highlight the text, and then you were to go to layout, you have an option here for columns, and you can set it to 2 or 3, however you want, and how that will set up your text to be read top to bottom, left to right, but also within the column. So if you're trying to accomplish that 2 or 3 column layout look, definitely use the built-in column features so that it will read your copy or your content properly. And so I'm going to do the same thing and just show you the difference. Under the review tab, I'm going to click read aloud.
This is an example of using columns to format your text. When you use the built-in column feature, a screen reader will read your text in the correct order.
So you can see that it looks the same, but it doesn't function the same. So someone with a screen reader is going to have an accessible, this content is more is accessible as opposed to this not being accessible, not using the built-in column for layout. So let me apply my headers to the inaccessible example and the accessible example, adding my header 3. And so then the next topic is tables, which again, we come across this very often, which that's a header 2. Simple tables are really the only tables that can be made accessible within a Word document. And this is difficult. This does cause a lot of problems for people. And I'm going to tell you what the difference is between a simple and a complex table. And here I have an example. There's a couple of things that you need to keep in mind when you're adding a table to your Word document in order to make it accessible. You need to use the built-in table feature. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can go under the Insert tab, and then you can insert a table. There's the insert option at the top of your computer screen that gives you the option when you have Microsoft Word open as well. You definitely need to make sure that the table is simple. It's a simple data table like the one here below. It has 3 columns and 3 rows. The first column says fall, and then in the row or below it, it lists when the first day and the last day of class is. And then spring with the first day and last day of class, and then summer with the first and last day of class. So that's a simple table. The other thing you want to keep in mind is in order for it to be accessible, it has to be kept in line with your text. And so you can check that by looking at your table properties and making sure that the text wrapping is set to none. And I'll show you how to do that. And you can't make images of tables accessible. So, don't take a screenshot or place what looks to be a table that's actually an image into your document, because that will also not be accessible to your users. And then the other thing to keep in mind is you cannot have merged or split cells on within your table in order for it to be accessible. So I'm just going to show you how you can insert a table. It's basically like this one. So I will select, I'm underneath on the ribbon under its insert, and then you can select table, then you can select insert table, and then you get to set the number of columns and the number of rows that you want, and then click OK. Then additionally, in order to make sure that you have your table header row selected, you would go underneath your table layout, or it's table properties, I believe. You can highlight the top row. Another one way you can get to table properties is by right-clicking, selecting table properties, and then under table, this is also where you want to select the text wrapping to none, which makes it inline. So you don't want it to wrap around text, or that will not make it inline. You want to make sure that text wrapping selected none. And then underneath table design, you'll have options to check on and off header row. Usually it's on by default on mine, but you want to double check on yours that you have that header row selected. So that it'll identify that top row as a header column or header row. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this just because we have this one set up. And I'm going to give this simple title, a header 3, to keep going with the making sure that my structure is all in order for this document. The next example I'm going to show you is what's considered a complex table, and these cannot be made accessible, which is difficult, I know, because a lot of people have complex tables and they want to put them within their Word document, but it's really important for you to know that it cannot be made accessible. You can tab through it. That is possible, but what this header row does, you can't have more than one header row, because for a screen reader, this header row is connected to the content below it. And when you have a complex table, it's not able to communicate this top little level row and then make the relationship between the subheader rows if that's how you have it set up. And so that's where somebody using a screen reader might get confused about the way the content is displayed, and they might not be able to follow along with the way you're intending to display the data. So this, even though it looks simple, is considered a complex table and cannot be made accessible within Microsoft Word. Moving, and I'll definitely give an opportunity for people to ask questions at the end of this. Does there need, I'll just go ahead and answer a couple of the questions right now. Does there need to be dashes or underscores between the words in the file name, or just spaces okay? That's up to you. I am always in the practice of adding either a dash or an underscore, depending on where I'm going to save the file. Sometimes, for example, if you were to save your file on something like SharePoint or some other type of system like that, it will add 20% icon in between your spaces. And so I just find it best practice to put an underscore or a dash in between words, or just use a capital letter instead of a space. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that. But I recommend it. I think it helps me to keep my content organized. And then if I do save it on something like SharePoint, it doesn't add in the additional characters for the file name. And then Kelly had a question, will we receive these information handouts? I'm happy to send this out, this document that I'm working from, if the group finds it helpful. We're recording this training today, and we'll provide it as a link. We'll upload it to our YouTube channel after we get the closed captionings updated. And then Anna had another question. Are the table shading options built into Word accessible? Not always. You have to make sure that your color contrast ratio is 4.5 to 1, and we'll cover that a little bit further down, and I'll show you how you can check that. You can set up a template for yourself. That's something we'll cover in another training, but you can change the styles however you like within the table setup as well, so that those colors are accessible, and then you can apply that style repeatedly to the tables within your document, and we'll cover that later on. So I think that's all the questions we have in the chat. So I'm going to continue on to using descriptive link text. And I'm going to apply the header style to that. That's a header 2. You can see I'm continuing to build the outline of my document. So one of the things you want to make sure that you do when you're adding links to your document is that the link describes the destination, or the function or purpose of the link, so that people using assistive technology can understand what the link is and where it's going. So below, I have a couple of examples of inaccessible links. I'm going to update the header style for those inaccessible examples to be a header 3. And then I have a bolded list. One of them, to learn more, click here, find more information here with the word here linked, go to https:// with the connors.wsu.edu URL listed. This isn't completely inaccessible. The go to with the Connors URL listed is not completely inaccessible. It can slow down. Somebody using a screen reader will get the entire URL read to them. So if it's a long URL, it's not recommended that you paste the URL within the document. It's recommended that you use descriptive link text instead. So to learn more, click here is not very descriptive, nor is for more information here. That doesn't tell the user very much, especially if they're pulling up an outline or something with their screen reader technology. One thing that's possible is for them to pull up an outline of the links so that they can determine what they might want to go to. And if they have just a list of click here, read more, learn more here, that's not descriptive for them to know where those links might be taking them. So below the inaccessible examples, I have some accessible examples. I don't know why my mouse keeps scrolling in here. So first I'm going to update this header. I can tell it's not updated to be a header 3. Then it shows up here in my outline navigation pane. And so I have 2 examples here of what an accessible link looks like. Visit the Connors website for information on how to apply, with the words information on how to apply linked to the Connors website. That's very specific. We'll tell the user that the link to information on how to apply is going to go to the page that tells them how to apply. So that's more descriptive. Same thing for the second bulleted point here of subscribe to announcements from the Connors web team. it's very clear that the subscribe to announcements text that is linked is going to take you to the page where you can subscribe to announcements from the Connors Web team. So a couple of examples of accessible links there. The next topic is accessible images and objects. And so I'm going to go ahead and update this header to be a header 2. Assistive technology cannot infer meaning from images or other graphical objects, such as pictures, images, or text, images of tables, shapes, icons, with hyperlinks, graphs, charts, etc. So in order to make sure that your images or not documents, but objects are accessible, you want to make sure that the content is in line with the text, just like tables and other elements. And I'll show you how to do that. And then there's 3 ways that you can add descriptive text to your images. You can add alternative text. If it's decorative, I'll show you how to do that. And then you can add captions, or you can also include information in the surrounding text. So on the page here, there is a picture of the tower with trees around it. In order to check whether or not this image has alternative text added to it, is you can click on the image, or if it's an object or a shape, you would click on the object or the shape format. And in the top in the ribbon, I'm going to select picture format. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can click on Alt or select Alt Text, which shows up right after you click picture format. And then you can see that it has auto-generated. In the right sidebar, it says a clock tower with trees in the background, description automatically generated. Within that same pane, you have the option to approve the alt text. And so if I select and toggle on that little button to approve the alt text, it'll get rid of the automatically generated content text. And so that is sufficient for the context. I'm going to leave that there. But then also another way you can check the alternative text is just by right-clicking on the image and then clicking View Alt Text, selecting that within the options that pop up. You can also insert a caption that way. So if you're wanting to have the alternative text in addition to inserting a caption, that's where you can select it as well by right-clicking. And so I'll click Insert Caption, and then this is where you can type in what your caption is. You can include the label or not include the label. There's an option for a figure, equation, table. You can add that or take it off, either way, and then you can click OK. I'm just going to click Cancel because I'm not going to add a caption to this. I just think that the generated alt text is sufficient, and so I'm going to leave it at that. If it was a decorative image, for example, like a swirling line, or just like a clip art or something that doesn't really convey any meaning to the user, that's when you would toggle on the mark as decorative underneath the alternative text option. So that's how you would accomplish that. So next I'm going to talk about, I'll go to the chat really quick. It looks like there's a couple of questions. From Christine, if we have PDF documents on our website, would it work / be preferable to change those PDFs back to Word documents? Then go through to make the Word doc accessible. Well, couple of things. One, it's always better to make the Word document accessible before you save it as a PDF. So in some cases, it might be necessary for you, Christine, to go back and update those documents in Word first and then save them as a PDF. There are additional steps that you need to follow in order to make a PDF accessible. And we're not going to cover that today, but we are going to do a training on PDF accessibility within the next few weeks, I believe. We have a PowerPoint, how to make PowerPoints accessible and how to make PDFs accessible training coming up. So best case scenario is you don't put documents on your website. That's the best case scenario. It's best to use HTML whenever possible, but if you must, then the documents need to be accessible. Always make them accessible in the native format, which most of the time is in Word and then saving to PDF. But even then, you still need to check it in Adobe Acrobat in order to determine whether or not everything has been tagged appropriately. So again, we won't have enough time to cover all of that today, but we will be providing a PDF accessibility training in the near future. So jump on that. Okay, so now I'm going to keep moving on. Accessible text boxes. So I'm going to update this heading. So this is the next, this should be a header 2 for this accessible text boxes. And so same rule applies for text boxes. In order for them to be accessible, you must ensure that they are in line with the text. And so I'll show you how to do that. You can select the box. First, I can show you how you insert a text box as well. It's just under insert. I keep thinking I'm on the website and I want to do a / to add my content. See where I'm at here. So in order to add a text box, you would select insert, and then you would select text box, and then you can draw out your text box on the page, and then you can begin to type in your text box. There's a number of things you can do with that. I'll show you as we get a little bit further on how you can add a background color. You just have to make sure that it's accessible and that the color contrast ratio is sufficient. So in order to make sure that my text box is in line, I'm going to select the text box, and then under the layout, no, under shape format, and in the top that pops up once I click the box, shape format, and then arrange. I would select arrange that shows up in the ribbon, and then position, and then in line with text. And so that makes sure that when a screen reader comes along, that it's going to read the text before it, then it'll read the text box with the text within it, and then it'll flow on to the content that shows up after it. So that'll make sure it's read in the proper order. The next topic, don't use color alone to convey meaning. This is really important for people who are visually impaired or might have color blindness. First, I'm going to update this header to be a header 2, because that's what it should be. Assistive technology can infer meaning from color alone. So I have a couple of examples here. I have an inaccessible example. It looks like I just have one. I thought I had 2, but first I will update this header to be a header 3 for inaccessible examples. So the first example says, if you proceed, your account will be permanently locked. And permanently locked, the only thing that's different is that it's the text is turned red. So if somebody had color blindness, for example, they wouldn't know that we were trying to add emphasis to this text. So nothing would be signaled to them. And then this kind of gives more information below. In this case, nothing about the permanently locked. Oh, I keep zooming in. Sorry about that. I need to adjust my mouse. Okay. Screen readers, users would not be told that this text is highlighted in any way. So no different meaning would be conveyed to the user. So then below, I have a couple of accessible examples, 2 different ways that you could do the same thing, but add a little bit more information. The first one, if you proceed, your account will be permanently locked. And permanently locked is not only bolded, but it also is red. So visually, it's got the bold emphasis. You could also use the red along with making it italicized. So you're not just using color alone to convey the meaning to the user. So then the last topic before we talk about generating a table of contents in your document is going to be color contrast ratio. This is something really common that we see within Word documents where the right color contrast ratio is not used. First, I'll update this to be header 2, my topic here for making sure color contrast is sufficient. It needs to be 4.5 to 1. And then I have a couple of inaccessible examples listed, which I'm going to update inaccessible examples to be header 3. The first bullet, you probably can't even see it. It's really light blue on the screen, barely readable to me, and I have pretty good vision. So if somebody was colorblind or visually impaired, they would not be able to read this light blue text. The second bullet point is a text box with an orange background and a green text over the top that said this text is not readable over the orange background. And you can see it's kind of difficult to read if you can see it. And then I'll show you how that's going to appear. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why it keeps doing that zoom in thing. Give me 1 second. No, I can't. Ah, my zoom bar's in the way. Okay. There. Okay, so now that I've made a lot of these changes and updates to the bullets and the header styles and things like that, I'm going to show you the accessibility panel. So this is a great tool to use the navigation pane to determine whether or not you've got your heading structure set up in the way that you want. But the accessibility panel is what you'll want to use. And you can also have it turned on during the entire time that you're creating your document, just to make sure you don't have any errors as you're working, which I should have done to start so you could see how I was able to fix some of the errors as we went along. So underneath the review tab, there is an option to select check accessibility in the ribbon, and then it is going to put your accessibility panel over to the right of your page. Two things that were not fixed, as you can see in the complex table. It's telling me that there was merge or split cells, and so it's highlighting that that is not accessible. And then the other thing that I haven't fixed is the light blue text does not meet the color contrast ratio. And then also that the text is not readable in the orange text box. So now if I had other issues in here, for example, if this was a lighter red for the permanently locked text, I am going to show you so I'll change that color, and now that pops up that the light blue text is not readable as well. So I'll turn that back to dark red so that the error goes away. And you can see it gives you the real-time results underneath the inspection results in the right-hand panel. So now I will update the light blue text. We'll just make it black, and that warning goes away. And then over the top of this orange background, let's see if white text happens to be sufficient to make it readable. I'll look at the accessibility tab. Oh, it's still not showing like it's very readable. So I might consider making the background a little bit darker. That dark blue seems to do the trick, and the accessibility warning goes away for that hard to read text contrast. So those are just some examples. I'm going to take a look. Or do we have any more questions before I show you how to generate a table of contents based on your heading structure? I'm going to make this my heading, update this heading too. Okay, so now that we've made this, except for the table here, and I don't know why that period is showing up here. What do I have here? I'm not sure where that's showing
You have
up.
a bullet still grayed out.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you. You're so good. So I'll just remove the bullet. There we go. That fixes it. Okay. But I'm not going to fix this because that was a bad example. But what I am going to do now is I'm going to show you how to create a table of contents. I'm going to insert a page break here. And then at the top of the page, one way that you can add a table of contents, which is really helpful for documents that you have that are longer, that has a lot of content in it. For me, it's under the reference tab in the ribbon, and then there's a table of contents option, and there's different styles that you can choose from, or you can set up your own custom table of contents. I'm just going to select the top one just for demonstration purposes. And then boom, just like that, at the top of the page, it has created a table of contents for me based on my heading structure. So, and it's hyperlinked. So that makes it really nice. If you're using a really good heading structure, then this makes it very easy to navigate through your document once you've set it up. You cannot set up a table of contents if you do not use the built-in header tools that are available within the Home tab under headings. So just remember, these are all fully customizable. Use them, get used to using them. It's one of the biggest issues that we have with accessibility, along with the links and the alternative text, complex tables, not using the built-in list tools, instead just using tab and space. And so I think that covers most of what I wanted to cover in this training today. Do we have any questions based on what I've covered?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you use the format painter in Word to quicken the assigning header levels?
Use the format painter
The format painter function in Word.
to assign heading levels?
Yeah, say you typed out your whole document and then you say, okay, these are LH2s. I take the format painter, double click it, and then just go to the next one, go to the next H2, go to the next H2. I'm just wondering, instead of going up to that little window of styles and picking the H2 and that type of
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
I
I'm
could
sure
test
there's
it.
more than one way. I didn't
Okay.
test that out. But with like most things within Word, there's more than one way to accomplish the same thing. Plus, you'll probably find if you're working on a PC, not all of the directions that I provided are going to translate necessarily because I'm on a Mac. But a lot of the same options should still be available. They just might not be located all in the same place. But you'd have to test that out, Vincent, to see if that works for you.
And I also work with a bunch of different groups. And so I may be designing something for children versus adults versus professionals. Is there a way in Word that we can group, okay, my header one's going to look like this on this project, but then I go to a different area that I'm working with. Okay, my header one's going to look like this, but then I will go back to the original. Do I have to recreate it each time, or can I save it? This is what I want for the annual report versus this is what I want for the 4-H handbook or something.
Yeah, so you could create templates for yourself. So
Okay.
you can get it set up exactly the way that you want. And so let me just show you the document here. So say this has, but it has all the content as part of it too, and you don't necessarily want all of the content. One of the things that you can do is create a document and then call it template, and you can set up all of your styles here to be exactly what you want. In addition to, you can go clear into the color. Let's see, under the design tab, you can set your color scheme here. So you can select something that's built in, or you can create your own custom color theme. And then once you've done all of that, you would go File, Save as Template. And then it would save it as a template. You could have it on your desktop or, wherever you save your files. And then every time you open that template, it'll open a brand new Word document for you that has those built-in styles as part of that template so that you don't have to start from scratch. So that's what I do. I just have one on my desktop, and every time I want to create a new document that has those pre-built styles in it, I just double click that document template and it opens up a new document for me. And then all of the styles and the colors and the fonts and everything have already been set up. So that's a really good way to save you some time. We are going to have some downloadable templates available on the website shortly that have like the built-in WSU approved fonts and colors and styles applied to tables and things like that that you can use on your own and download and reuse if you like, just to make it easy. But does that help answer your question, Vincent?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Mhm. What other questions? Is there anything that anyone was surprised about or didn't know or wants to know more about?
I have a question about what you said at the beginning about forms and using Microsoft Word, like that you can't use Microsoft
Yeah.
Word to create an accessible form. We have a
Right.
lot of forms that are required by the university that are Word documents shared on our website. Do you know
Mhm.
if that's like going to be changing or
It,
anything
will
like
need to
that?
change, Anna. It'll either need to be made into an accessible PDF form, or it'll need to be transitioned to be an online form using Gravity Forms, which is our approved WordPress plugin that we use to create online forms. It's accessible. So any Word document form that's on the website, if it's used for current programs or services to either participate in, access, or engage with, then it will need to be updated.
Okay. And I guess my question is more about if we know, like, not wanting to duplicate work that other departments or programs might also be doing for these like required by the university forms that we have. So I guess that's more a question for our leadership, I guess, to make sure that
Yeah, I think
people
it
are
comes
tracking
back
it.
to who are we getting this form from? And that's
Mhm.
asking us to post it and then putting the onus on them. Like, we need this form to be accessible if we're going to post it on our website. I think that's just, it's going to take a lot of communication, because I know that's a university wide issue, right? I mean, there's all
Right.
kinds of forms out there that come from, a different department within WSU, and we're asked to post it on our website and it's not accessible. Well, the liability comes to us if it lives on our website. So we need to make sure that those documents are accessible. And oftentimes it's just a matter of asking the person who provided it to make it accessible and bringing it to their attention. So there's going to be a lot of that over the coming months, which is partly why we're putting on some of these trainings, is to help people learn how to make these documents accessible. Because we know we're not going to get away fully from posting documents to the website. I mean, less is more. The less we post, the better. But we know that's not realistic across the board. So
Okay, thank you for that.
welcome. Any other questions? Well, I'm going to stay on for another 10 minutes. I'm going to head and stop the recording, but we'll be available if you have any questions related to the training, or if you have any web related questions, we're happy to answer those at this time now too.